I think the roster's great. I think with Ehlers up front, they're improved. The blue line is still rock steady. Look out for Nikishin for a full year. I think this is a situation where we are absolutely going to have a great chance to see Carolina get that over that hurdle, take that next step, be in the Stanley Cup Final. So from that standpoint, let's go with Vegas, Carolina, Stanley Cup Final, and Carolina as your champion. I'm doing it. Carolina as your champion this year. Like I said,
our sponsors will love it. Our sponsors, big Carolina fans, they'll love
it. The possession darlings, the analytic darlings, who I have been trying to poke holes in for years, and here I am picking them to win the Stanley Cup this year. Like I said, I think I like it. I like it. I really do like that roster. The one concern is in net, but like I said, I really like that roster otherwise for the Carolina Hurricanes this year. So there you have it. Vegas, Carolina, with Carolina as the champ for me. Vegas, Florida, Vegas.
Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Show's over, fellas. Can't do any better than that. Cap game 1 in the series on your fucking own. I'm out of here. Still fucking here, huh? All right. See, you're all still fucking here. All right. Well, at the end of the day, I guess we do have a show to do. Back to work. Welcome to the Ice Guys, Tuesday, June 2nd. Ian Cameron with you. Yes, we are going to talk NHL Stanley Cup Final and Game 1 and the series between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes. You guys are persistent. Like I basically said, I can't do any better than what we ran in the intro. Basically called the Stanley Cup Final to a T back in October. It's all downhill from here, man. Said, how can we do this show? I can't follow that up. I can't do any better than that. But at the end of the day, hey, I am excited to talk about the series. I am excited to talk about Game 1. I'd never leave you guys hanging, obviously. So, like I said, feeling pretty good these last few days. It's not every season. Make no mistake about it. It's definitely not every season that back in October, you call it exactly to a T what the Stanley Cup Final will end up being. And October 6th, 2025 on our season preview show. Yes, indeed. Vegas, Carolina was the Stanley Cup Final call from yours truly. And it has come to fruition here as June 2nd, 2026. We get ready for the series and Game 1 between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Carolina Hurricanes. And excited about this series. I know there's people, especially north of the border, that say, come on, you got Vegas has barely been in the league for a decade now. Carolina's down south. Who the hell cares? Give me an original 6. Give me a Canadian team. Then I'll get excited. Bull, I say to that. There's a lot of good storylines to this series. Two teams playing at an extremely high level coming into this year's Stanley Cup Final as well. So definitely excited to break it all down in just a moment. We thank all of you for joining us. Before we get to the we're actually going to recap and put a little bow on the Montreal-Carolina series because we have not been with you since Friday and have not been able to talk about the end of that series. But before we do that, we just want to mention BetCast announcements for the Stanley Cup Final. So we'll do that right now.
This is breaking news from the Ice Guys.
We will not have any BetCasts this week. Unfortunately, from a scheduling standpoint, there's some conflicts that have come up for me this week, specifically as far as being available through the evening to do the BetCast. But we're going to make up for it next week. We will be giving you not one, but two live betcasts next week during the Stanley Cup Final. Our final free-for-all betcast. That's right. We do owe you a June free-for-all betcast. We do one of those every month. We will have our final free-for-all betcast for you guys next Tuesday, which will be Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Golden Knights and the Hurricanes. So next Tuesday, June 9th, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, it will indeed be Game 4 Stanley Cup Final betcast, and it will be free for all, open to everybody, including those of you that are not Patreon members right now. So again, Game 4 Stanley Cup Final next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, live betcast, free for all. And then we'll be back with you next Thursday, June 11th, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, for a Patreon exclusive betcast for Game 5. So that's going to be the two betcasts, probably the final two betcasts of the season here on the Ice Guys show. So Game 4 and Game 5 next week will indeed be live betcast nights, free for all in Game 4 next Tuesday, and Patreon exclusive for Game 5 next Thursday. So we just wanted to make a mention of that. And of course, to be part of the Patreon exclusive live betcast next Thursday for Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final, you must be a Patreon member. Get on board if you aren't already. Patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. So make sure you join us for that. Let's go all the way back quickly to Friday and just note that there's really not much to say about how to wrap up this Montreal-Carolina series. It was just another dominant performance by Carolina in Game 5. The better team, the healthier team, the fresher team. Montreal, clearly, you could tell the tax of playing 7 games in each of the first two rounds against Tampa Bay and Buffalo really did a number on them. Not to mention Carolina just found a way to suffocate them, shut them down, have the puck most of the night, just carry the play, just, shoot, obviously heavily outshot, heavily outplayed, heavily outchanced Montreal really in every game in that series except for Game 1. It was just a thorough victory for the Montreal, for the Carolina Hurricanes. So you give them credit, much better team, deserved to win. I think a lot of us sensed that the end was coming as far as Montreal in Game 5. And sure enough, it was just as decisive a victory for the Carolina Hurricanes, as we saw from them in Games 2, 3, and 4 of that series. Well deserved. I mean, they were excellent. We talked about K'Andre Miller, how good he's been, and I want to make this more about Montreal. It's been a great season. It's been a successful season. There is nothing for them to be ashamed of. There's nothing for them to be upset about. This is the first step of a long pathway that this franchise has to be a contender. Like, they're going to be contending for a Stanley Cup for at least, I would say, the next 6 to 8 years. And it could be even longer than that. But I would certainly say the next 6 to 8 years, this Montreal team will be a Stanley Cup contender. They have so much to build on, without question. They don't even have Michael Hage yet. He's going to be a prospect in the pipeline that might be there as early as next year. And you think of what they already have with Slavkovsky and Caulfield, the captain, Nick Suzuki, Ivan Demidov's going to get better, Lane Hudson. They've got certainly a lot of good prospects in the Reinbacher's in the system with Laval, Owen Beck. I mean, I could go on and on about how many great young prospects and great young talent this team has. And it's no doubt going to be on display for the next several years. And like I said, they are going to be a factor and in the mix to be in the hunt for a Stanley Cup for many, many years to come. And the fact that, in these last 2 years, we've seen progression each year from Montreal, finally made the playoffs last year, got to the first round, bounced by Washington, but it was a learning experience. And this year they took another step. And this year was a big step for a very young team to go from first round last year, first experience in the playoffs for so many of these players, to all of a sudden going to the conference final this season. It was a big step for the Montreal Canadiens. They've got to get a better second-line center. They've got to get deeper at the center position, especially that second-line center spot. They got another right-shot defenseman that they need. Obviously, they're set in net. This was clearly a year where we can now say Jakub Dobeš he's a bona fide number one goaltender. Based on this year's performance, could he have a insane fall off and decline next year and struggle? Sure. But right now, based on his performance this year, Jakub Dobeš has certainly cemented his spot as a number one goaltender in the National Hockey League. I don't see how you don't think that. It was outstanding most of the playoffs. In fact, there were some games in the Carolina series would have been worse if not for him. You have Jacob Fowler. Don't forget about him. A guy that came into this season as their number one goaltending prospect. And then all of a sudden, Jakub Dobeš says, well, not so fast. What about me? And puts up the great season and the great numbers that he did. So, Montreal's got a lot to be excited about. Marty St. Louis, as Robert says in the chat, he's, showing signs of being a great coach. Did he make some mistakes in this round? Yes. Could he have altered the lineup, maybe switched things up, put some fresh legs in there at some point, live legs, when you're talking about a gas team that's wearing down. He didn't make any lineup adjustments. That's something you can quibble about. That shouldn't take away from the overall body of work that we saw from Marty St. Louis throughout the course of the season, as the Montreal Canadiens head coach. I'll tell you right now with what Nick Alvento's saying, Mike Matheson, he's an older guy, you wonder on the back stretch of his career, I thought he gave him everything you could ask for. And Caden Gooley can play on my team any day. Any fucking day of the week he wants to. What a gamer, tough as nails. There's multiple times it looked like, boy, how's he going to get through the game? And somehow he did. I don't think he even, I think if it was a regular season game, there's no chance Caden Gooley's playing game 5 Friday night of that series, but he did. Credit to him, but credit to Montreal. It was a great season. I know disappointing that they didn't put up a better fight against Carolina. There wasn't a more competitive series after game 1. But they should still be proud of their efforts. I was absolutely and imagine I'm not even a Habs fan, and I was gut-wrenched, absolutely gut-wrenched, watching Brendan Gallagher and the emotions yesterday in the dressing room clean-out day to talk about the season that was, knowing that he's done as a Montreal Canadian. He spent his whole career there, 14 seasons with the Montreal Canadiens, and the emotions pouring out of him. It was absolutely, it got to me. Like I said, I'm not even a Habs fan. I don't have any emotional investment in the Montreal Canadiens. And to see just the emotions pouring out of Brendan Gallagher and the end of a long career, his whole career's been spent with the Montreal Canadiens, but certainly will not be returning next year. And you felt for him, and all that. And he talked about, too, how there's been personal situations and his team's helped him, pull him through it. So just emotional stuff from Brendan Gallagher. And like I said, kind of the end of an era because of how long he had been a member of the Montreal Canadiens. But again, Montreal, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Got a long, bright future ahead. And speaking of a bright future, there is a bright future for Alex B. Smith because apparently the lights are back on. Apparently there was a power outage for poor Alex. Just a terrible timing preventing him from getting on the show right away. But here he is now. Alex, we're just wrapping up a thought or two on the Montreal-Carolina series, but thoughts on that series and specifically focusing on Montreal and the great season it was for them.
Yeah, I was listening to you on my phone as I was getting things set back up. But you were talking about how this is the Montreal team that's going to compete for the next, at least I'd say 5 to 6 years. 8 years is a bit of a stretch, but when you have the talent that you already have locked in for the next 5 to 6 years, like I said, you got a bunch of guys through the pipeline still. You've got goaltending solidified now. You said Jakub Dobeš is your number one starter. Jacob Fowler is now ready to be a number 2 guy. That's a hell of a tandem. When we talk about, you need a 1-2 tandem to get through the playoffs, to get through the regular season so you can be fresh for the playoffs. Montreal has that right now. So that's a bridge you've crossed. A whole lot of veteran teams as far as top 6 forwards or veteran teams as far as top defensemen don't have. That's a huge advantage. So, it's a great win for obviously Carolina. Get the monkey off their back that they can't play in the Eastern Conference Final. And like you said, now to advance to where they are and you have to finish the job, you have to seal the deal if you're Carolina. But if you're Montreal, there's no reason to hang your head low on that series. I know there's a lot of people who said, I was some Habs Twitter account that said this is one of the worst conference finals ever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, did you not watch the 2010 Western Conference Final when the Hawks basically dummied San Jose? San Jose looked absolutely lifeless. But there's been plenty of other conference finals that were worse to watch than Montreal Carolina. This is a Montreal team that just played their hearts out, and they gave it all, even in defeat. And Carolina was just the better team in the series.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's all there is. You just ran up against a better team. They had much fresher, much more energy too, because they played 8 games going into that series, and you played 14. You played the max, and it clearly ended up showing. There's no question about it. But like I said, credit to Montreal, great season. I do want to mention before we get into Vegas, Carolina, the Stanley Cup Final series bets first. We'll talk some series bets, and then we'll get into Game 1 specifically for tonight. Couple NHL news and notes. Chris McFarland, former GM of the Colorado Avalanche, and all of a sudden he looks like he'll be the president of hockey operations and general manager of the Nashville Predators. Looks like that is going to be finalized, and Chris McFarland has been a big hand, obviously, in the architecture of the Colorado Avalanche the last several years, without question. Like I said, he was been the general manager of the team since 2022. When Joe Sakic became just president of hockey operations at that time. It's a promotion. How the hell are you going to turn it down? And more money, obviously. So we'll see how it works for him with Nashville. It remains to be seen. There's a lot of work to be done, obviously, with the Predator roster. Nick Saban's part of the ownership group that hired Chris McFarland. So it's going to be interesting to see what winning pedigree or winning thoughts he can provide to the room. Who knows? But he mentioned it. Like, I'm just going to give you some philosophies, what it takes to win. I mean, he's not a hockey guy, but like I said, he's involved in the ownership of the Predators. So yeah,
he knows what it takes to win.
Does
you can't say he doesn't know that.
That's true. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes for Nashville. I thought Toronto made some nice moves. Yeah, people are raving about the guy they got from Minnesota. Just raving about him becoming the new assistant general manager there now for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they like that hire a lot there in Toronto. What else? Zach Werenski won the Norris Trophy. They did a nice surprise type of thing for him too. They did a whole video with it, the family, and it was a total shock to him apparently that he was going to get the Norris Trophy presented to him right then and there. So a couple of news and notes regarding the NHL the last couple of days since we've been with you.
One piece of news that I think is huge for the team losing him and the team gaining him. Judd Brackett is now the assistant GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I mentioned that. Judd Brackett.
Huge grab for the Leafs. Yep. This is a guy who's helped build that Wild. He's just the reason why they have one of the best drafted rooms over the last few, one of the best prospect lines over the last few years. That's maybe a big loss for Minnesota. And it definitely could be a huge gain for Toronto as they're trying to retool things.
Yeah, I mean, Jesper Wallstedt, Matt Boldy, you go on down the list. Why do you have all those guys? Oh, yeah, Judd was a big part of it for the Minnesota Wild. So, yeah, he built a nice stable of young players, young talent there. And that was a good get for Toronto. Certainly is going to help them as now they're starting a bit of a retool there with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Canucks, it's a shame on me for failing to mention that. Manny Malhotra, the next head coach of the Vancouver Canucks.
You called it.
You called it. Totally shocked. Can't believe it. Manny, we've only been saying for months he was going to be their head. If they ever fired Adam Foote, and once they decided to do that, I'm like, absolutely, it's going to be Manny Malhotra, especially because he's close with the Sedins. They played together in Vancouver all those years ago. They were teammates, Daniel and Henrik Sedin, with Manny Malhotra. So it just was a natural turn of events that he'd be hired as the head coach. So, and I think he's going to do well. I think it's a nice hire. I really do. I think he's ready for it. I think he's going to be a successful head coach with the Vancouver Canucks. He won the Calder Cup last year with the Abbotsford Canucks. Did a nice job. Knows a lot of the players in the system, obviously, which is a benefit. Can hit the ground running. So congratulations to him. And I think it's a good A+ hire there, Alex, for Manny Malhotra in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's a good promotion. We see a lot of times where AHL guys get promoted up to the NHL and it doesn't always work. Jeremy Colton. But I think this is one that where it fits, and I think it's going to be, like you said, a good positioning. And the fact that you have the old horses that were part of the best Vancouver Canucks teams we ever saw, like you said, the Sedins, and now having Malhotra, having all those guys having their fingerprints on this club now, that's good news for the future.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, on we go. It's time to talk Stanley Cup Final. Carolina -150 series favorites over the Vegas Golden Knights. Of course, Carolina has home ice advantage. They would have had home ice advantage. The Eastern Conference team was going to have home ice advantage regardless of who came out of that series. Obviously, that'll be Carolina. So we'll get underway at the Lenovo Center here tonight. I'm doing the 6-7 gamer again. I, with all due respect to Carolina and how they've rolled through teams in 4, 4, and 5 games in the playoffs so far, sweeping Ottawa, sweeping Philadelphia, 5 games against Montreal, and you could argue they might have swept Montreal if they didn't have such a layoff, going into game 1 of that series. One of the longest layoffs in NHL playoff history, 12 days, going into game 1 of that series. Vegas is going to be a much more formidable foe. Why? Because they're big, they have size, especially on the blue line, mobility. They've got an ability to check and defend and be extremely effective at limiting shots, limiting chances away from the puck. It's just amazing, the mirror images we kind of have here in this series when it's all said and done. And I think that's going to be clearly on display here throughout this series. And like I said, knowing that both of these teams are capable of shutting it down. You've got obviously Frederik Andersen and Carter Hart both playing very well in net for their respective teams. Both teams have shutdown defensemen. Both teams have puck-moving defensemen. Both teams certainly can get offense from their second line, and we know Carolina's second line has often overshadowed the top line. But I will say this: Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis, while they have not underperformed, but they've just been quiet at times compared to obviously Hall, Stankoven, and Blake has been the line that has just been getting it done for Carolina. But I thought we saw a little bit more from that Carolina top line later in that series against Montreal, which is a good sign. Don't forget about the contributions that Carrier, Jankowski, and Robinson. He talked about how he was snake bit to score, and all of a sudden he had 3 goals, I think, for Eric Robinson in the Eastern Conference Final. And he's a fourth-line player. And don't fall asleep on Nick Ehlers, the law firm of Jordan and Jordan, Stahl and Martinook either on that third line for Carolina. Slavin, Chatfield, Miller, Walker, Gostisbehere, Nikishin. And then you flip it around to Vegas while, you get Barbashev, Eichel, Dorofeev, a dynamic top line. I think just as good a line for them, at times maybe even a better line. Howden, Carlson, and Marner. Brett Howden's been our little gem of the playoffs, if you will, from a value standpoint. How many times have we hit bargain bins on him and goal props? And it's just been endless. He's been a real, you always look for that player that, steps out of the ashes and delivers for you in the playoffs. Yeah. Brett Howden has been that for the Vegas Golden Knights without question. And Mitch Marner's been excellent, obviously, the betting favorite right now to win the Conn Smythe Trophy after this series. I thought Tomas Hertl, Colton Sissons, Mark Stone, after Mark Stone came back, fit in as a nice line as well. Smith, Dowd, and Kolasar has been a very effective fourth line. And then the blue line is tremendous. I mean, I don't know if you can really say anyone's played poorly on it. McNabb, Theodore, Hannafin, Anderson, Jeremy Lauzon, Dylan Coughlin. Looks like Jeremy Lauzon might be is going to be back because he missed some time in the conference final. Caden Korzak was taking the spot, but looks like he might be back here for Vegas in this series. I think it's a real close series. I do. I don't think either team's running over the other. I think it's going to be close. So give me 6 games, 7 games, plus 210 at DraftKings. The 4-2, 4-3 Carolina, 4-2, 4-3 Vegas, exact series score. The Vegas 4-2 is plus 550. Vegas 4-3 plus 575. Carolina 4-2 plus 450. Carolina 4-3 plus 425. Again, we hit one of those. As long as the series goes 6, it's profit. It's been something we've gone to the well with a bunch of times. We'll go to it here. And I am going to stick with Carolina to win the series. I mean, I'm a dummy to change my opinion now. When I gave it out in October, I said Vegas, Carolina, Stanley Cup Final, Carolina to win it. I'm not going back on it. Not at all. I can make a really good case for Vegas to win. Would I be shocked if Vegas wins? No, I wouldn't, because they're playing great. They're 19-4-1 for crying out loud since John Tortorella took over. But there's no chance, none, 0, that I'm going back on my preseason prediction of Carolina. And I just love and I think the home ice matters because we see road teams. In fact, road teams have been doing very well here in the playoffs. But Carolina, I think it's their time. And I think in a close, tight series, I think their ability to even limit the opposition defensively just shines just a little bit more even than the Vegas Golden Knights going into this series. So I'll say Carolina we need a series to go. We need a compelling, competitive, great series. Because let's be honest, we had a sweep in the Western Final with Vegas, Colorado. We had a 5-gamer with Montreal, Carolina. Where there was only one good game in that series, one great game in that series. Everything. I know there was overtime games, but it felt like Carolina was still in control. We need a 7-gamer, and I'm going to say it's Carolina in 7 here in the Stanley Cup Final. Alex, so overall series thoughts and bets that you like here, Vegas, Carolina.
I'm always down for a Stanley Cup Final sweep, but I don't think that's going to happen here. I think we're going to have a long, compelling series. And somebody, Benji in the chat said, this is a hockey watcher series. It is. It really is. I know the ratings have been fantastic throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. That means that you got more eyeballs on the game. But this is a series where I think the casual fan might drop off a little bit because it's going to be defense, defense, defense. This is going to look like something. I told my mom. I said this is going to look like something out of 1997. I think I even said that on the last backcast we had as well. I think with the way that these two teams are playing. And it's funny because usually when you have such kind of a buildup of a 1 and 2, and you don't always have that in the Stanley Cup Final. Yes, of course, this is the last two teams, the best in the East and best in the West. But this clash feels a little different. I think because of the fact that Carolina is that team that finally got over that hump, got over that hill, and a Vegas team that we've seen here in this spot multiple times within 9 years, and now here they are, third appearance. In the Cup Final. So it's just interesting storylines independently clashing together. But I feel like this is Carolina's time. And you said that as well. And like I said, you called this series all the way back in October. I did call Vegas making the final. I thought it was going to be the Florida Panthers, however. They had another agenda this season, couldn't stay healthy. But Vegas, and I said it too. I wasn't I was a little hesitant on it because I always am when you're talking about who's going to make the fucking Cup Final in October. But I said Vegas will claw their way to it. And that's what they did throughout the season. They were a mess 3 weeks before the playoffs started. And they make the coaching change, and they've found a way now. And Carter Hart has found a way out of nowhere. No one would have ever thought Carter Hart was going to be signed with an NHL team this season, let alone playing and starting and leading a team to the Stanley Cup Final. So you add those variables in, but they did. They clawed their way to this spot. They fought like hell, and they deserve to hold that Western Conference trophy. Well, they didn't hold it. Of course, they're one of the teams that didn't want to touch it, but they deserve to be in this spot right now. But I think it's Carolina's time. I like Carolina in 6 games, but I'm right there with you. I did bet the 6-game, 7-game stack. I also think there's going to be a lot of close, tight games. So I like 3 games to go to overtime, plus 900 is available for that at BetMGM. And there's a couple other props I'll be looking at as well that, of course, we'll have all finalized on the Patreon card later.
There you go. Good tease to be a Patreon member right there. The full card, of course, for both of us, Series and Game 1 will be posted a little bit later this afternoon. Look for that around 6 p.m. Eastern time at the latest. We'll have that posted later this afternoon. Series and Game 1 bets, the Patreon card up on the page. So make sure you keep an eye on that. As far as props for the series, I'm trying to really be careful with the over-under goals, over-under points bets in this series. How many goals are we going to see? And points for each players. If it's going to be a bunch of 2-1, 3-2 hockey in this, which is, I'm not saying it's going to be that, but there's a possibility it is with the way these teams defend, with how they limit chances, they suppress shots, shot blockers galore on both teams as well. And it's not going to be easy to get pucks to the net here in this series. So that's why I say if you like over-under series-long props for players, be careful with them. Don't be going, I'm not going for the big plus money. I'm not looking for a bunch of 3+, 4+, 5+, 6+ goals props in this series. I'm not looking for a bunch of more than, I think even 5+ points props in this series. It might be stretching it a little bit, if we're not going to get a ton of offense. So I'm just saying be careful if you're going to look at 5, 6, 7 points in a series for any of these players, or 3 goals or more for any player in this series as well. Just be a little bit careful with those. I'm much more involved with most goals, most shots, most points, most shots, those kind of props. Shots on goal leader, points leader in the series. That's definitely more what I'm looking at here. As far as shots on goal, I'm getting more involved in this market. I haven't done a lot with shots on goal leaders in the playoffs so far, but there's a bunch I like. I'll say this right now. It's going to be a recurring theme. Stankoven, Hall, and Blake, that dynamic line for Carolina. I'm on them in a bunch of different varieties here. Shots on goal leader. We know they're going to be shooting pucks, all three of them. I love the value you're getting with those three for shots on goal leader in the series. We would expect Carolina to maybe be that team that has more shots on goal in the series. As much as Vegas suppresses shots, I find Carolina is just a cut above as far as shot volume, having more. Like I'd be stunned if Carolina does not have more shots on goal than Vegas in this series. I think that's a fair, reasonable assumption here to make. Now, I know it's the old Fresh Prince line. Don't make an assumption because you'll be an ass and the ump will shun you. I know that. But at the end of the day, I think Carolina is, going to end up having more shots on goal. But with that in mind, Logan Stankoven, plus 1,600 shots on goal leader. Value. I took a shot on that. Taylor Hall, are you kidding? Plus 6,000? Jackson Blake at 100-1? These are some incredible prices here. And we expect Carolina to have the higher shot volume as a team in this series. So I think there's great value, great prices on them. Same thing with the goals leader market. Stankoven, 10-1 to lead the series in goals. Hall, 18-1 to lead the series in goals. Blake, 19-1 to lead the series in goals. I think there's great value in all of them. Eric Robinson, I've got the over-under as far as goals in the series for him, and it's a pretty cheap and reasonable price that we are looking at for him. And don't forget, he scored 3 goals in the Eastern Conference Final, and he was making things happen without question for the Carolina Hurricanes. Remember, he had chances in the first 2 rounds, and the puck really just wasn't going in for him, but really started to cash in. I mean, he's even money just to get 1 goal in this series. Eric Robinson for Carolina. So that to me is worth a shot. I even took just a very tiny look at the 2 goals as well for Robinson, which is plus 500 or more even in some spots. So I like that as well. It's a much longer shot, but the goals leader for Robinson was the goals leader in the last round, Carolina and Montreal. Now, I don't know if we expect that to be the case here, but still with the fact that he's been really chipping in offensively, and you can find Eric Robinson in that 100-1 range. So a couple bucks on that certainly wouldn't hurt you. And then on the Vegas side, as far as their props, Dorofeyev, shots on goal leader, plus 750, makes sense. Mark Stone actually could be a under the radar shots on goal leader, 55-1. Didn't mind that price. Lead the series in goals, Dorofeyev, plus 600. I went with Stone, Howden, and Barbashev, too. Just as smaller flyers on the 3 of them. I mean, Stone at 14-1. Brett Howden, of course, 20-1. We're taking a shot with what he's been able to do. And close shave Barbashev. I think this is going to be a series made for close shave Barbashev. Ivan Barbashev. He's a bigger body. He's got some physicality to him. Carolina does such a good job of not giving you a bunch of odd man opportunities. His style of game could translate into some better offense for him here in this series as far as that goes. But again, Mark Stone and Howden over 1.5 goals, Barbashev over 1.5 goals in the series, and Stankoven, Hall, and Blake all over 1.5 goals in the series. But that's it. I'm not going in further with the over 2.5 goals, over 3.5 goals. That would petrify me in a series where there may not be a ton of offense. So I'm sticking with just over 1.5 goals for all of them. And then a couple Conn Smythe shots. Mitch Marner's the favorite. Can't bet him, though, at this price. Freddie Anderson's the Carolina favorite. Can't bet him at this price. I think there's a little value right now on, again, I hate to be freaking repetitive, but here we go again. Taylor Hall plus 650. Logan Stankoven plus 850. Jackson Blake plus 1,500. Carter Hart for Vegas plus 1,500. He turns into a brick wall and they win this series. Plus 1,500 right now is not a bad price at all for Carter Hart. And then Dorofeyev at 80-1. What if he goes off? And he's got that ability offensively in him to do that, especially because Carolina's one Achilles heel in these playoffs is they've taken a lot of penalties at times. And if you give Vegas, if great as the penalty kill is for Carolina, and it's amazing, Dorofeyev just needs one shot with that amazing release of his, that and Benji sees it too, that at 80-1, I think a little flyer on Pavel Dorofeyev, Conn Smythe, is not a bad option there. So there you go with everything for the series. Go ahead, Alex.
It's not the same as far as Vegas Conn Smythe goes. I would think Jack Eichel, I'm seeing him at 16-1, or Dorofeyev. I think those would be better long shots. Carter Hart might be. He'd have to, like you said, have to be an immaculate series. Obviously with all the circumstances surrounding him, the last thing that the writers would want to do is give him this award. So he'd have to extremely earn it and deserve it to get it. So I'd tread lightly betting him.
There you go. All right, let's go to game one specifically here tonight. Lenovo Center, Vegas, Carolina minus 150, home favorites, 5.5 the total. I think this is going to be a low-scoring series, but I'm going to bet that it isn't, at least for tonight. Just for tonight. Again, we're talking about for Vegas, they've been off for 1 week. I think it was last Tuesday that they ended things against the Colorado Avalanche in the sweep. And again, this is where, we got to get back into game action all of a sudden and a pace of and the one thing about Carolina is even though they're great defensively, it's not like there isn't pace in their games, especially at the beginning of the game. We often see, obviously, pace out of the gate, and Carolina's done a nice job getting on the board early in some of the game, throughout the game, a lot of the games throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Ottawa series, the Philly series, the Montreal series, getting on the board early. And I think that full week layoff for Vegas could see a defensive miscue or two. Look at what we saw with Carolina. I know it was 12 days versus 7, the layoff, but they were giving up odd man rushes like crazy. Did Montreal get a single breakaway or odd man rush after game 1? I don't think they did. Not off the top of my head, they did. But Carolina was giving up multiple odd man rushes to Montreal in game 1 because the layoff truly hurt them a little bit. So, like I said, the 1 week layoff, I think it could get a little ragged, a little sloppy early. You get a goal or two quickly in the opening 20 minutes. I mean, I really like first period over tonight, 1.5 plus 100. I will go smaller on over 5.5 full game as well. Both teams to score. It's an over trifecta night, but I like the first period looks more. Over 1.5, even money, plus 100, at plus 190 for that. Both teams to score first period as well. Over 5.5 full game. I'm not touching a side tonight. I'm not. What I did bet a little was Carolina to win game 1 in the series, which is plus 130. Did take a little piece of that, but I'm not laying minus 150 with Carolina at this price on its own. And I'm also not convinced Vegas goes into Carolina and wins game 1 here on the road because their layoff is even longer than Carolina. Carolina knows how to deal with a layoff a little bit more now because they had to deal with it from the Philly to the Montreal series, and now Vegas got to deal with that. This is the first time they've had a long rest. They had to go right from Utah to Anaheim to Colorado without much downtime. And like I said, now that 1 week, and I could see their defensive, usual, pretty structured, pretty sturdy, don't give you much time and space, but when you're coming off sitting on your heels for a week, and Tortorella did the best he could as far as, practices and trying to simulate game situations to keep them ready tonight for game 1. But I think just for one night, I could see this being a low scoring series the rest of the way, but for game 1 tonight, it is an over trifecta for me with more on the first period over in particular. Alex, game 1, Vegas, Carolina.
Yeah, we kind of lockstep with our looks for game 1, but I like goals early in this one. Like I said, because of that little bit of a layoff, a little bit of a rust. So I have on both teams to score plus 190 along with that first period over. I got minus 105. You said there's a plus 100 floating around. So obviously shop around and get the best price available for that. But then I think things taper off after the first period. See it slow down, and I think we could see one of those. Like I said, I like 3 overtimes in this series. I think the first one could come here tonight. I grabbed overtime, the draw plus 315. And this is the way that I'm betting Carolina in the series as well. I have Carolina to win game 1 in the series plus 120. And then I have Vegas to win game 1, Carolina to win the series plus 420, which that came in very nicely in the Eastern Conference Final. We hit that plus 370. Montreal showed up for game 1 and then ran out of steam and Carolina took business after that. So, that's always sometimes a good look where even that team could just hop out and win the first game. Doesn't mean they're going to continue that momentum throughout the series. So that's the way I'm betting Carolina in the series. I have them to win the series with either team winning game 1 tonight, and then I have the draw, and I have the first period over with both teams to score.
There we go. And don't really have much to say about game 1 specific player props because I just rhymed off a lot of the players I liked with the series long props. Bottom line is, all those Stankoven, Hall, and Blake, it goes without saying, goal, assist, points, shots on goal props. I'm interested. Dorofeyev, shots on goal, goal, assist props tonight. I'm interested. Don't be scared to look at block shot props as well because there's going to be, I think, quite a bit of shot suppression throughout this series. So shot block, especially when both teams are one step away from winning a Stanley Cup. The guy that is number 1 supreme shot blocker going into the Stanley Cup final by far is Jalen Chatfield for Carolina on the blue line. He has gone over 1.5 block shots now in 5 straight games for the Carolina Hurricanes. All 5 games in that Eastern Conference final against Montreal, he went over 1.5 block shots. And keep in mind, Carolina doesn't give up many shots, and he still went over 1.5 block shots in all 5 games in that series. And you got to think Vegas is going to generate a little bit more pressure and stress that Carolina D at least a little bit more than Montreal did. You got to think that's going to happen. So, when it's Jalen Chatfield over 1.5 blocked shots, I'm liking that. As far as shots on goal, 3 straight over 1.5 shots on goal for William Karlsson. I like that one quite a bit. And what a difference maker he is going to be. He is going to be someone that if Vegas wins the series, Alex, we're going to look back on it and say William Karlsson had a hand in it. Whether it's offensively, defensively, he's excellent, as we know. But over 1.5 shots for Wild Bill in 3 straight games. Mark Stone's gone over 1.5 shots on goal in 2 straight. Logan Stankoven's gone over 2.5 shots on goal in 2 straight. Tomas Hertl's gone over 1.5 shots on goal in 2 straight, as has Noah Hannafin on the back end for the Vegas Golden Knights as well. We got goal-scoring streaks of 2 straight games for Mark Stone and Logan Stankoven entering tonight. 4-game point streak for Mark Stone. 3-game point streak for Andrei Svechnikov. 3-game point streak for Jackson Blake. 3-game point streak for the Ghost, Shane Gostisbehere for Carolina as well, who really started to come alive offensively toward the end of that Eastern Conference final. 2-game point streaks entering game 1 of the Cup final tonight for Nick Ehlers, for Sebastian Aho, for Logan Stankoven, and for Shea Theodore on the blue line for the Vegas Golden Knights. 2 straight games with a point for him. So those are definitely some of the props I'm interested in, riding those streaks a little bit, which is something I like to do. Those are the props definitely I'm interested in. Of course, for goal scoring, in addition to the streaking players, Brett Howden, we got to bet him again. And I like close shave Barbashev. I really do think Ivan Barbashev could be a sneaky offensive contributor here in this series. All right, shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Yeah, Braden McNabb for sure as far as Vegas shots, blocked shots, no question. If you look at the last 5 numbers for Vegas, certainly, you could make a case for Braden McNabb. You can make a case for Noah Hannafin as well, as far as that goes on the blue line. So those are a couple to keep an eye on as far as blocked shots on the Vegas decor for this series. Great stuff. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Make sure you check out wizardsportspicks.com. Stanley Cup Final, NBA Finals, MLB, CFL gets going this week. Man, am I excited about that. CFL beginning for another season. So make sure you check it out. Lots of YouTube content as well. wizardsportspicks.com. And of course, patreon.com/Ice Guys, $10 per month. Betcast, as we just announced at the start of the show, 2 betcasts next week. Free for all for Game 4 next Tuesday, June 9th. But Patreon exclusive for next Thursday, June 11th. For Game 5. So to be part of that betcast, become a Patreon member. Goalie charts, totals charts, our daily betting cards, sides, totals, player props, posted each and every day on the Patreon page. And now, starting now, it started yesterday, non-NHL Stanley Cup Final days will have a sports betting card posted each day on the Patreon page as well. So again, if you want to keep your membership going through the summer, we'll be giving you plays, giving you a card throughout the summer. We're going to have more Player Suite interviews recorded over the summer. That's going to be for Patreon members. Free agency recap show in July. That's going to be exclusive for Patreon members. The plan is to, once September rolls around, do the 32 teams in 32 days, season previews again. I know that got a great response last year. That'll be for Patreon members only as well. So reasons to stay a Patreon member during the NHL off season for sure. So $10 per month. Your membership goes a long way to supporting the show. Patreon.com/IceGuys.
And also check out the Ice Guys store at iceguys.myspreadshop.com. You got 8 days left to save 20% off all items in the store right now. You know, hit the redeem button at the homepage, add your items to your cart. 20% will be taken off the checkout. So it's a great time. Summer's here to get nice and warm. It's a great time to grab some T-shirts, grab some caps, grab a few items, and save 20% off right now at the Ice Guys store. That's iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
All right, bargain bin special of the night and best bets, our first ones of the Stanley Cup Final, coming up in just a moment, right after we hear from our great Ice Guy sponsors.
Wizard Sports Picks, featuring the finest handicappers in the universe. Sharp insights, trusted picks, and relentless results. We strive to help you become consistent winners. This is Wizard Sports Picks.
All right, bargain bin special of the night for Game 1 of the NHL Stanley Cup Final. Alex, we'll start with you. Bargain bin special of the night.
I got a pair of them. They're both involving Carolina. First one we're going to go with is the first goal of the game, and it's Logan Stankoven, the guy who's done that quite often so far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You get him plus 1,600 over at FanDuel to score the first goal of the game, so that'll be my first bargain bin special. My second one will be Jackson Blake, anytime goal. You get that plus 310 just right over the hump over at FanDuel as well. So that'll be my second one. So Logan Stankoven, first goal, plus 1,600. Jackson Blake, anytime goal, plus 310. My two bargain bin specials for Game 1.
All right, good stuff. Bargain bin special of the night for me. For the and we're going to follow the same procedure. Now that we're down to these standalone game nights now, one game a night, one bargain bin from each team. For the entirety of this Stanley Cup Final. For my Vegas bargain bin special of the night, I'm not going with Brett Howden tonight. I'm switching it up. Brett Howden's going to be a bet for sure to score a goal, but I'm switching it up tonight. I'm going to go with Close Shave Barbashev, Ivan Barbashev for the Vegas Golden Knights. I truly think this series is more built for him to make an impact offensively, and I like what I saw from him at times in that Colorado series. Plus 400. The best price out there with Ivan Barbashev for the Vegas Golden Knights. That'll be my bargain bin special on their side. And the bargain bin special of the night for the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm going to go with Eric Robinson at plus 850 at FanDuel. Don't forget, this guy was the leading goal scorer in the Montreal-Carolina series, believe it or not, in the Eastern Conference Final. Eric Robinson, plus 850 at FanDuel. Really good value. So Ivan Barbashev, plus 400 for Vegas, and Eric Robinson, plus 850 for Carolina for my two bargain bin specials here for Game 1 tonight. All right, best bets. Alex, what do you got for best bet?
I'm going to go with something that's for the series, not just Game 1. I'm going to go with 3 games to go to overtime, plus 900, available at BetMGM. Somebody asked in the chat earlier what book had that. Plus 900 at BetMGM is where you can find that bet. But I like at least 3 games to go to overtime here in the series. So plus 9 to 1. That's my best bet.
Good stuff indeed. All right. Up there we go. As a best bet for me. There we go. All right. There we go. Sorry, the camera wasn't changing over for some reason. But anyway, best bet. First period over. Vegas, Carolina, over 1.5 first period. I like it. I think it might slow down after that, but I think we get the 2 goals early, especially with Vegas off the 1-week layoff. So Golden Knights, Canes, over 1.5, plus 100 first period, best bet. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. It's a hell of a hockey night. So we've also got ECHL West Final Game 6, Fort Wayne facing elimination. Our boy, Jordan Sambrook and his Florida Everblades, they're waiting for the winner of that series because they're going to another Kelly Cup final. By the way, shout out to Jordan Sambrook and his Florida Everblades. That's a freaking ECHL dynasty going on right there. Are you kidding me? 4th Kelly Cup final in 5 years for the Florida Everblades. What a job by them down there. Estero, Florida, stand up. My goodness. What a nice little run your team has had. And you are awaiting the Fort Wayne, Kansas City winner in the ECHL Kelly Cup final. So you got Fort Wayne, Kansas City, ECHL Game 6 in the West Final tonight. You've also, and I know Alex is interested in this, Colorado, Chicago, Game 3 of the AHL Western Conference Final. That series is tied at 1 game apiece, going back to Rosemont. So, yeah, definitely great hockey tonight outside of the Stanley Cup Final. I got to have the multiple screens going because I'm interested in all this hockey, not just the Stanley Cup Final. So, great hockey night, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. I like got the Wolves jersey on. I definitely will be switching back and flipping back and forth. I got everything set up in a way where I'll be watching both games, of course. But like I said, yeah, definitely one of those good nights where you got multiple levels of hockey, but some quality games to choose from.
Yes, you can bet on the AHL, Kevin, and I don't know. I probably am not going to bet the other games tonight, but I would absolutely lean Chicago in Game 3. And I'm not just saying that to make Alex happy, but I think that's got like a zigzag type of series feel to it.
It Chicago, does have that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it does. Colorado had the response I expected in Game 2 to tie the series after losing Game 1, but I would expect Chicago to kind of punch back here tonight at home. But great night of hockey. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. Reminder, the Ice Guys is live on every Stanley Cup Final game day, weekdays 2 p.m. Eastern, weekends noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Tuesday night. Enjoy Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final, and good luck. And we will be back with you Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, to tee up Game 2 on another edition of the Ice Guys.